Wednesdays start with Luke Hodge for City Power, delivering electricity to Melbourne's CBD and inner suburbs. Hodgie, hello.
Good morning, Gerard. How are you?
I'm well. Have you had a look towards the weekend that's about to unfold before us and one of the great home and away rounds that we've seen?
It is. I'm looking through the games, and first of all, it is the Carlton one has struck me the most. You're almost putting on like the Kennett curse to Carlton players, aren't you?
Yes.
Carlton supporters aren't too happy with you at the moment, but look, they're still battling away, even though with that huge injury list they have, they're still sitting in 5th spot. So, looking through my tips, I've actually tipped 6 of the 9 games this week. I've tipped the teams that are lower on the ladder than their opponents.
Really?
Which I'm not sure how often that has been done.
Oh, well, we might have to finish with that. We don't tend to do tips or previews, but it's hard not to be consumed by what's about to unfold. Just let me get a closing word. We obviously had the Monday means test together. You spoke about Jordan De Goey. You and I have differing views on this. What's your view with how it has resolved?
Well, obviously, there's the two sides of the story. What everyone's talking about is first of all, people saying that he went across over there, he did what a lot of the other players have done, drank over there, had a good time, and then came back. And I think what people were the biggest issues where there was the tugging of the clothes, where the lady said there was nothing untoward, there was nothing she was worried about. There was vision of her kissing him in the ear, jumping on his back. Looked like they were having a good time on holidays. And I think that's where people were sitting back saying, what's he done wrong if they're both two adults saying that it's okay? But I think it's for Collingwood, the perception, and that's where, look, they slapped him on the wrist a little bit with a $25,000 suspended fine. That's not really doing anything at the moment, because if he does it again, he won't only get the $25,000, he'll get sacked. So that's a little bit of a slap on the wrist, but it was more Collingwood saying that that's not what they're standing for. And the bigger one was how Collingwood want to be seen as far as respect for females and what they want to be seen as a group and their culture moving forward. And the biggest thing that they've done against him, the $25,000 wasn't much, it's take the contract off the table. That there says that moving forward, if he's going to stay a Collingwood person, he has to live the values and live by the culture of that football club. And obviously they've gone through a couple of tough years, Collingwood, but they're trying to sharpen themselves up moving forward. And that's the biggest thing, because I'm pretty sure you said it was a 2 + 2, $3.2 million deal. Well, he's not going to get that. And for one, they've safely saying that if he's going to stay here, we're getting him at a discounted rate. And it's for other clubs to be risky enough to pay top dollar for Jordan with a few issues that he's shown over the last 6 to 12 months and further back. So, look, I think the big part from this is Collingwood's just making a stand on where they want to be seen from the public eye, where they want to be seen internally, and the standards for all the players moving forward from now onwards.
All right, let's get into the round ahead. The study says that there's never been a round like it in our 9-game era with the set of matches that we have. So tomorrow night's top of the table. Melbourne, I think they've had a good hard look at themselves over the last little bit. They've lost 3 in a row. The Lions, they're strangers in a strange land at the G. It's amazing how little they play there and how success is so far in the past at the MCG. It is a loaded fixture as one plays 2 tomorrow night.
It is. There's so many questions for tomorrow night's game. You look at Melbourne. May comes back in, but Big Maxi Gawn's out. The thing that has troubled Melbourne has been the hard-working forwards that move up and back, up the ground and work hard back, the agility of a small forward, where if you look at the Lions, they're very top-heavy. They got Danaher back, they got McStay back, they got Hipwood back, and in the past, that's been a strength for them. They've won 11 of 12 games with those 3 guys playing together. So it's a pretty good record, but coming up against a team who love to intercept mark and work off tall forwards, it's going to be a battle of, I guess, what the Lions forwards can do compared to the Melbourne defence. Can Luke Jackson, who everyone's talking about, big contracts, and he's going to be, I think everyone knows how good he's going to be throughout his career, but is he at the stage where he can battle the number 1 ruck? And Oscar McInerney is doing it himself. He did it last week with Ford as the sub. But yeah, there's so many questions with this game. So I've actually gone for the number 2 Melbourne to knock the Lions off at the G. It's a place where they haven't been lucky enough to play much. Mainly a lot of time when they do go to Victoria, especially the years where they weren't building a big crowd, they played at Marvel, or they've played a lot of teams in the state. So I think Melbourne at home at the MCG with May back will give them a little bit of trouble.
So haven't played at the G since round 1 2020, and Lockie Neal recounted last night with us on 360 that there was nobody there that day. That was one of the empty games. Haven't won since round 21 2014. So if they are going to plot their way toward a premiership with this group, it feels like a landmark night.
And that's something, being on the inner sanctum at the Lions, that's something that they're not afraid of. I know that when I was there, Chris Fagan put up teams that they hadn't beaten, and they hadn't beaten Richmond for 14 times and hadn't beaten Geelong for long. So when I first walked in there was a whole list of teams where it'd been 5 years, 6 years, 10 years since they were able to knock those off. And to their credit, they've worked and they've improved and have been able to tick the box of a lot of those clubs. They also had venues where they hadn't won in a long time. I know Adelaide Oval was up there and over in Perth. And once again, to their credit, they'd worked on game styles. They'd even had training sessions where they'd bring the ground in smaller, just so they could practice on a smaller ground compared to the gab that they have back up here in Brisbane. So, look, they're not afraid of ticking off those boxes. It's a part of their journey moving forward, and there's no doubt there's going to be an empty box next to the MCG that they can't wait to tick.
Is it? Have you pondered whether it's unfair on the non-Victorian teams that come into contention that they so rarely get a look at the venue where the grand final is going to be played?
Oh, what I've noticed over the last 2 or 3 years is not much is fair. If you look at teams, Geelong and Richmond in 2020, they come to Queensland and played at the Gabba foreign. They were moved away for 4 or 5 months. So nothing has been fair over the last few years. But in saying that, being at Hawthorn, when we had a home game at the MCG playing finals, when we had the grand final against West Coast in 2015, I think it was, they pantsed us at home in the first final. But we had that much confidence that the MCG suited us because that's where we played most of our football, and we had a lot of belief that back on our home ground that we'd get the job done. So there's no doubt the home team would have a lot of belief playing an interstate team at the MCG.
Friday night is the Bulldogs and Hawthorn. It's probably the only fault with the round is that the Geelong-Richmond game, which is Saturday twilight, belonged in this slot. But as it is, it's 10th versus 14th. The cautionary tale for the Dogs is really clear. Don't be St Kilda and Sydney. Don't miss the boat against the teams who are going to non-finalists. And Hawthorn, they can take a scalp. They've shown that throughout the year with the Cats and the Lions on their shelf.
Yeah, I think what you look at Hawthorn is they're a team that are ready to pounce if you don't come to play. They got the Lions down at Tassie about 4 weeks ago, and I think their game style works pretty well against the Bulldogs. As far as they want to intercept mark off the half back line, having it mainly Norton down there, they've got a lot of blokes that can drop off, intercept mark, and then slingshot and move the ball fast. Sam Mitchell's game style is a lot how he wanted to play as a footballer. Just attack, go quick, go fast. And we know that the Doggies, they do like to link up with a lot of handballs, but the pressure that Hawthorn can put on them can turn the ball over, and they've got a pretty exciting forward line. Gunston back in, Mitch Lewis back down there. So I think it's going to be a pretty good game Friday night as well.
I wonder whether it's a shootout like the Dogs just had against the Giants.
Yeah, well, I hope so. The game on the Giants and Bulldogs game, just with the amount of goals, having Toby Green up one end and Waitman up the other. But this weekend you've got Jack Gunston, you've got Mitch Lewis. So, look, hopefully it's just as exciting on Friday night.
Who are you tipping?
I've got Hawthorn.
Right.
Hawthorn with their intercept game and just Mitch's will and want to attack, but they've also got that defensive structure that Clarko's taught them for a number of years. The
beauty of the round is not only at the top and in the middle, but at the bottom. So West Coast 18th, Essendon 16th is the other piece of Friday night. I feel like West Coast might be a tricky proposition in the West from here. Essendon, that can't be a one-off. You can't just roll it out once, back that up again.
No, and I gave Essendon a massive pump up on Monday because they just took the game on. And that's what you have to do when you're a team that there's hesitation, there's doubt. When you've got a strength across a half-back line and you've got the will to move the ball quickly, that's what they have to do. This is a coin toss as well. The West Coast at home, but I'm giving faith in Essendon. The fact that they found a way that they played their best football. If you make mistakes, who cares? Go and make another mistake. Go and take that risk. You've got Hyde on the back line. Take the teams on. Take bounces. I've got Essendon, if they can fulfil what they did last week, going over there and having a really good win against West Coast.
All right, Saturday afternoon, well, actually the sequence of Saturday games is 3rd versus 5th, 4th versus 6th, and 7th versus 8th. Perfect. It's Carlton and Fremantle. So Fremantle inflicted convincing defeat on Carlton over in the West earlier in the season. The Blues, a kingdom for a defender at Carlton at the moment. This game is at Marvel. And Fremantle have become dependable on the road.
They have. And they're another team that I've praised for a number of weeks just on how they've handled everything from off-field issues, on-field issues, how they're a real team. And I don't think we've said that about for a long time, but they are a consistent team who don't rely on anyone apart from a group system defensively and also work rate offensively to help each other out. So I've got Fremantle, and we've mentioned Carlton. They've continued to push, even though their style they played against Richmond in the wet wasn't the right style in a game like that against an opposition like Richmond, but they've got belief, and you could tell by the way that they played that they've still got belief in their game style. They wanted to continue to push it, and hopefully they just get a little bit of luck. But I've got the Dockers winning this one. Then
we move to Geelong and Richmond at the MCG. So Danger back for the Cats, Dusty back for the Tigers. Their recent history, it's fully loaded.
Oh, who wasn't excited by Richmond? I don't know. You sort of sit back and everyone was like, "Oh, Richmond have had their turn. We don't want them back up the top." I sat back last week and called the game and just got excited by what Richmond brought. Their forward line, their midfield, their hunt was back. And when you see a team that play like that and just the will to win, you get excited by. But they're two teams that I've got high hopes for the end of the year. Geelong have snuck under the radar, and they're doing what Chris Scott likes, just playing football, getting the wins. But I've gone for the lower person on the ladder. I've got Richmond with the form that they had last week to take on the Cats.
Is this the path into premiership contention for Richmond if they win here?
Yeah. I think if they can push back to what they showed last week, that attack, the ferocious attack on oppositions, to turn the ball over, to make them make mistakes, and they just had the right people waiting to pounce. And it's what teams feared about Richmond for 2 or 3 years, where I think they lost that intimidation for 12 months. And I know it was only last week was only one game, but if they can continue that again, I think a lot of teams in that top 8 are going to be sitting back going, we're worried about this Tiger Army again.
What about Dangerfield's return, Hodgie, and what he can get out of the remainder of the season? The calf injury twice, and the patient approach this time around to try to give him the tilt at the back end.
Paddy's a smart enough person. Everyone tries to come back quick enough from an injury, and he found out that as you get that little bit older, that calves are a little bit more sensitive. You can't push through them as you could with a few other injuries when you're younger. But he's taken the time. He's gone back. He's got his fitness back up. And one thing you do know about Paddy is he's an ultimate professional. He's going to leave no stone unturned to make sure he gets back playing his best football. And the best part for Geelong, he's got a long patch. He doesn't have to come out and they don't have to win on the weekend to say, look, we're up charging. He's got to get through a number of games to play his best football. And if you look through that Geelong team with the senior players they have, as long as they're in the mix in finals time and they're playing some good football, they're dangerous because of the blokes that they have in the side through the midfield. They've got a stable defence, and that forward line is awfully dangerous.
Would Paddy be a little bit nervous on return?
No, I don't think so. I don't think he's a hesitant person. He would have belief that, look, last time he came back early in what he should have, and he knows that. They've taken the time to go back, and he'd be full of confidence, the fact that he's been able to do a little bit of work to get his fitness back.
All right, then the two teams playing with a vengeance on Saturday night, having had the missteps last week, the Swans and the Saints. It's utterly perfect that they get to work their angst out on each other.
Yeah, without a doubt. St Kilda, I reckon that had a flow-on effect from the Brisbane, as I've spoke about on Monday with limited rotations and how flat they were on a 6-day break. I'm tipping St Kilda, but not with any confidence, and that nothing to do with St Kilda. It's more about Sydney. Sydney have been a side that has had too much pride. over the years to go and have that poor performance would have sat with them all week. John Longmire would have went through the whole part about why they were bad, undisciplined acts throughout the side, but allowing 7 goals in a row unanswered is not what John Longmire is going to accept, and it's not going to be good enough for a finals team moving forward. So I am backing the Saints, but it's going to be a belter game, and I can understand that both teams need to get back on that winners list.
What's your eye tell you about your old teammate Lance Franklin at the moment?
Look, it's hard. When you get older, it is harder to back up week in, week out. And one thing he has been doing, he had that week suspension. But AFL's it's a cruel game. It's a relentless game. And one thing with Bud, he wants to play. He doesn't want to miss games. And at times you might have to give him a spell every now and then to make sure he's fresh, because we've all seen when he's motivated, when he's fresh, when he's up and about, he's still a very damaging player. We saw in round 2 when he kicked his 1,000th goal, the work rate that he was doing to make sure he got those 4 goals in that game. But one thing you have to do as a key position forward, and especially at his age, make sure he's fresh the whole time. And whether it's one game every 5, you miss one game every 5 just to make sure that he's peaked and energetic for the games.
Would you be convinced that he'll be playing next year?
If they manage him correctly and they find that the one thing about having Bud in there is McDonald can run around with the second best tall defender, and that is just as much for his confidence, but being able to see what Bud can do and what his teammates can help him out develop. So if Bud's not there, McDonald's getting the best defender every week, and that can lose a young forward's confidence, but also it can damage him as far as long term as well. So Bud is a big decoy as far as taking the best defender, but also willing to work up, and he's smart enough now that he can play further up the ground to let McDonald do his stuff deep in the forward line.
So that's Saturday's footy. You've gone St Kilda there?
Yes, St Kilda.
All right, North Melbourne and Adelaide. So wins are scarce. This game is in Hobart. It's going to be significant in Adelaide if the Crows lose, but there are so few chances left for North Melbourne in this season that they have to seize one shortly.
And once again, this is probably the same as that Essendon West Coast game. Having North play down at Tassie, I'm thinking that's probably their only shot to try and get one over the top of Adelaide. But I think Adelaide's, I don't know, they've just got that grit about them where they've dropped a few games, but I reckon they're seeing this as a real game to get back on the winners list. But I'm saying this with no confidence because the football both have played as of late. Yeah, it's a toss of the coin, and hopefully Adelaide get up because that's who I've tipped.
Collingwood and the Giants. So this is big for Collingwood. They're ninth. They're coming off 4 wins on the trot. They have a stretch of games where if they are the team that they aspire to be, they will pick off the next 4 and move right into the reckoning. But this is a disjointed week. The Giants are playing in a really interesting way in caretaker mode, so they'll come straight at Collingwood and look to score. I can't wait to see what this looks like.
I'm the same. I'll put this down to very similar to the Bulldogs-Hawks game, that Hawthorn are playing better football and where they're positioned on the ladder, and so are the Giants. As you said, the caretaker mode is play with excitement, take risks, take the game on and make sure you try and trouble the opposition. And who knows, you might be able to get a win with it. And that's the way they're playing. I saw that when they played the Lions. They had 8 goals in the first quarter because it was just let's see what we can do against this team. They've got a good defence. Let's try and break them open by just taking risks and seeing what they can do. And Collingwood's the same. They've obviously had a big week coming off the bye. Is the Goey going to be there? Is he not? It is a danger game for Collingwood, but the football that they've shown over the last month has been exciting. They've got a really good brand of football going, and I think at home they should be good enough. But it's the same as the others. GWS, you can't take them easy.
I wonder this would be a really interesting week for Craig McRae. He's got time now, so it's Wednesday, and he's got time to set them up for Sunday. What's it like inside a club to be able to shelve the turmoil and the sense of siege and actually get back to the core of setting up for the game that's ahead?
Yeah, Clarko used to be really good at it. He used to turn it to a us versus them mentality, saying that internally we're tight-knit, we're a team, we're together, and he'll use all the external noise to try and turn and motivate the players to come out there and act that our backs against the wall, let's have a crack at it. So I don't know if all coaches have the ability to do that. Clarko was really good at it. So internally, they'd be probably saying similar things. I doubt the Goey will be there on Sunday. When you fly back a week prior to a game, not train with your team, and people say he was training in Bali, but it's not the same. I think the first time he's going to be with his side is on Friday. So I can't see Goey be there. That's just another area they got to cover, I guess. They've had to have a lot of players play separate roles or different roles this year for him to be successful and to win games, and I think this is just no different.
So is it better for all involved in your mind that he doesn't play Sunday?
I just think there's a lot of questions. If they're setting standards about how they want to be seen external, about respect for women in the big scheme of things, you also got to look on the footy side of things about their younger players going, hang on, how can he go to Bali, come back a week before our game, not train with us till Friday, then still play seniors? So I think for the bigger picture, and it may cost them a loss, but for the bigger picture of where they are and where they're moving forward, that's something that they have to sort of set the standard internally that, young fella, you can't go and do it and come back and play, and we can't expect an older person to do that as well.
And the final game of the round, are the Suns mature enough to go to Adelaide Oval and beat Port, who make you earn it? They're limited, Port, but gee, they make you earn it. If Port lose, they're out of commission.
Yeah, I've got whoever loses this game's gone. They're both Gold Coast have a game on Port Adelaide, but Gold Coast next few weeks is Port Adelaide, Collingwood, Richmond, Essendon, then Brisbane. So they've got a tough schedule coming up. So whoever loses this game, their season, I think, is done, and they'll have to start planning for the next year. But one thing we know about Gold Coast is you can't count them out. This year especially, they've been able to fight back, and when you think put a line through them, they've been able to bounce back. But as I said, what Port Adelaide did to Sydney over there, they still worry a few teams, Port.
Which way are you going?
Got to go the home team. Got to go the power.
All right. So the Hodge 9 are Melbourne, Hawthorn, Essendon, Fremantle, Richmond, St Kilda, Adelaide, Collingwood and Port.
Could probably tip 0 out of 9.
It is the most important tipping round of the year as well, along with everything else. I hope you've got some help from Luke Hodge. Hodgie, terrific. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Jared.
Luke Hodge sets you up for, well, what shapes as a historic home and away round. Not in the 9-game era have we had a set of games quite like this.